Today we're going to be taking a look at the Oral Reading Fluency Evaluation Rubric. On your screen, you can see a sample from 4th grade, although this rubric is identical for 3rd and 5th grade as well. The only thing that will change will be the numbers in your standards. So let's take a look at what we have on our screen. If you were going to assess your students on any particular day, you would take out your rubric and you might want to make a couple notes to yourself. So the first thing is which passage you're using. So you're going to see that today we are going to be using a passage called Juan's Animals. And I want to remember that this is 2nd quarter. This is the first time I've done this. I might also write the date on there. So let's take a look at what you are going to be assessing with this rubric. The first thing that you'll see is that your standards are listed here with standard number. So if you're paying attention, you'll see that you are looking at the appropriate rate. It says read grade level prose and poetry orally with appropriate rate on successive readings. That means the speed. This is not going to be subjective. I'm going to show you how to calculate that. This is graded on a scale of 1 to 4, as we'll see in just a moment. Then you have another standard, 4.4.b, which says grade level prose and poetry orally with accuracy. So here we're looking to see how accurate the students are in reading. And the scale for that is a 1 through 3, not a 1 through 4. And I'll show you why in just a moment. The next two questions that you see are yes, no responses. So there's no scale for that. So what do we do with those categories? Well, you are simply going to ask a comprehension question after the student has finished reading. Because this standard says, 4.4 says, read with sufficient accuracy and fluency to support comprehension. So you ask a quick question following their reading of Juan's Animals. If they can answer it and their comprehension is on par, you will say yes. If they cannot answer it, then you will say no. Then for 4.4c, it says use context to confirm or self-correct word recognition. So you're going to ask them about a word that's in the passage and see if they can use the context to figure out what that word means. And they might need to reread to find that. And so if they can do it, you write yes. If they cannot, you write no. So these two categories are simply yes, no, and they will not be factored into the grade. You should know, though, that this is consistent with what the M-Class assessment does. So the M-Class assessment, after the student reads for 1 minute, also asks a comprehension question just to see if the fluency led to comprehension. So this is pretty consistent with what students do when they take that assessment as well. So now you have everything you need to input this score, and we will talk about how to input it in just a moment. On the previous screen, you saw that the child received a 4 for the rate and a 3 for the accuracy. Now, where did those numbers come from? So I want to show you this now, which appears on the Oral Reading Fluency Evaluation Rubric. These are the charts where you're going to calculate these things. So it is not subjective, it's completely calculated. And this chart comes from the M-Class Dibbles assessment, the 2019 edition, actually. And so these are standard scores used all across the country, and that's what we're going to use to categorize these. So we've got to keep in mind what time of year we're giving the assessment. So here we have BOY. That would be the beginning of the year. We've got MOY, and we've got EOY. So I'm going to just pretend that I gave this assessment in December. Okay, so if I gave it in December, that means I'm going to use the MOY calculations. Okay, so I calculated how many words read correctly in 1 minute that my student read. And my student read 151 words correctly in 1 minute. So middle of the year, that would put me right here. Okay, and so that band is the blue band, the 4, well above grade level. Okay, so if he did 151 words correctly, that's where I got that 4 from. Now, when I calculated the percentage of words read correctly out of total words, my student was 97% accurate. So that is here, and it's the 3 band, and that means grade level because I took the total number of words, correct, sorry for the messy handwriting, over total words read. And that gave me a percentage, 97%, and I knew that that was in the green band. So the child would have gotten a 4 for fluency and a 3 for accuracy. Now, you'll notice that there is no 4 on this chart to the right, the fluency. The highest they could get is grade level is 3, and that is fine. It's because the students are near perfect anyway, so there's no way to show above 100%. And so 4 and 3 are the total scores that a student can receive. That being said, when we put this on Class Reach, we're actually shooting for grade level, and our A, if you will, should be grade level. So even though they could possibly have a score of 7 points, we're going to make this out of 6 points. And that's because the green is 3 and 3. And so is it possible that I could input a 7 out of 6? Yes, it is possible. And that's for the student who is 4 and well above. But our goal is grade level, and that would be 6 out of 6. So again, let's look at what it would look like if I was doing a sample student. So I'm doing Susie, and I gave Susie the assessment, and using the scale that we just looked at, she got a 2 on rate. She got a 3 on accuracy. So she's reading slowly, but she is reading correctly. I asked her a comprehension question, and she could not answer it, mainly because she didn't read fast enough and get to enough content. But she could understand specific words I asked her about, so I'm going to give her a yes there. So you will see that she scores collectively 5. So again, I'm going to enter that 5 out of 6 on Class Reach. All right, now let's turn our eyes to looking at what the passages actually look like. So you can pretty much use whatever grade level text you would like to use. What I have on your screen is an example of a passage that is meant to be used for oral reading. And the reason why I know that is because there is a word count given over here that shows the number of words on each line, and that makes it a whole lot easier. And then also this section down here where I can go ahead and calculate total words read, total errors, and total words correct. That just makes it easy for me. There are also some reminders across the top. So it's going to remind me to set a timer for 1 minute. It's going to remind me that if the student pauses for 3 seconds, give them the word and then mark it as an error. It's very important to remember that. And when a minute is up, note the last word the student read with a bracket. So I like this particular type of passage because all the cues I need as a teacher are already on the page. So if you end up grabbing a passage that is meant for oral reading fluency, it's probably going to be set up like that. However, you do not have to grab something like that. You could grab something straight from in class, a progress monitoring passage, which would be done by grade level. And so it would look like this. This is what you would hand the student, and this is also what you as the teacher would be using. So you might need to preempt that by going ahead and doing the word count. So maybe over here, I'll just write down, okay, these are how many words. That doesn't make sense. How many words are on each line? And, go ahead and do your word count to make it easier and give yourself the blanks for total words read in a minute minus the number of errors. And so the final calculation over here. You might want to set your page up like that. So if you're going to use one like this or something from your BJU Basel reader, which you can, make sure to choose a grade level text. Remember, the student is reading out loud to you. So you are going to set a timer for 1 minute when you put this in front of your student, and you are going to allow them to read out loud for 1 minute. After the minute is up, you can let them keep reading if you want. That's up to you how you want to do that. If you were doing a true running record, you would mark many, many things as the student was reading out loud to you. You would mark the words that are incorrect. You would mark any self-corrects. You might mark words omitted, maybe some words inserted, some substituted words. You would mark a whole lot of things. And there's great data in a true running record. And if you've seen other videos that explain those, you might be ready for that and you might want to do that. But you don't have to. It gives great data to you as the teacher and also the co-teacher. But if you just want to capture the standards-based items that we're looking for, the standard-based items for the grades 3 through 5 is rate and accuracy. So if you want to stick to that for the HLA assessment, that is totally fine. So what I'm going to show you now about how to mark this is what you should be doing. Of course, you can do more than this, but this is the minimum. All right, so you're going to put a timer on. The student's going to start, and they're going to start reading. And you're just going to be following along until the timer goes off. So let's say the student ends right here at 1 minute. I'm going to mark that with a bracket. So you definitely need to mark where they stopped and started with a bracket. Obviously, this is going to be where they started, so you don't necessarily have to do that, but definitely mark the end. That way I can count my words and get my total word count read for 1 minute. The other thing that you're going to be marking are words that they missed. So this child missed iguana and schemes and overthrow. So if I was looking at this, let's just pretend that this word count is right. There were 57 words up until that line, but they didn't get to the last word. So I know that the child read 56 words. I can real quickly see that there were 3 that were incorrect. So the final word count correct in 1 minute would be 53 words. And that is the score that I would then take back to that rubric. Now, again, if you want to mark things like self-correct, like let's say they missed the word question, but then they got it, I could mark that as a self-correct. Those kind of things are just up to you whether you want that information. A couple of things to remember. If the child comes to a word, like let's say this happened with the word iguana, and 3 seconds goes by and they don't say anything or they can't get it or they're paused, you give them the word iguana, mark it wrong, and then let them keep going. So that's the 3-second rule. And then again, you're timing for 1 minute. So if this was the case, if my student Susie had read like this, I would take this 53 and I would go and put it on the scale to see what my student would get. Okay, so here I am looking at the scale, and this first section is going to be for the rate. Okay, so I'm going to be doing the rate on this side. And I know that my student read 53 words in 1 minute. So I'm looking at this for beginning of the year, and 53 is going to fall right here. And so sadly, this child is a 1, and so is well below grade level for rate, meaning the speed. So on the rubric, they will have a 1 for that. On the other hand, I'm going to look at accuracy. Okay, so this is my accuracy chart. You'll notice that there's no 4 here, and that's because they're getting pretty close to perfect with the green, with level 3. This one I'm going to do a calculation. So I'm going to choose the number of words read correctly, which was 53, and I'm going to divide that by the number of total words read. So this is basically giving me a percentage of how many words, a percentage of the words that I read that were actually correct. And this is pretty high. So this student read at 95% accuracy. So when I look at the chart, I'm real shy away from that green level. I'm right here in the high end of a 2. So this student would have a 2. So very close, very, very close to being on grade level for that. So what's really cool about this is because then we could say to our families, hey, you know what? Your student is reading pretty accurately for their grade level. They're just reading kind of slowly. So we want to really work on that speed. So I'm going to take these two numbers. So we've just gotten our scores. Now I'm coming back to the rubric, and I'm going to enter those scores now. So Joe got a 1 and a 2, and I'm remembering that those are calculated scores, and I used the rubrics on the previously we talked about to calculate those. These two are more evaluative. I'm using my teacher discretion. He had great comprehension and did, in fact, understand the words that I asked about. So Joe is going to get a 3 out of 6 total points. Again, we're going to use our grade level scale. So we're using grade level. So here we would choose, even though the scale goes up to 4, we choose 3 and 3 here. That's where this 6 comes from. And Joe got 3 out of the 6. And so that is what I would enter on ClassReach. And that is everything that you need to know.